I took advantage of a professional development opportunity provided by the district. It was called You're Gonna Love This Kid. It was taught by Susie Dees and Ashley Schnicker. The class was based on the book written by Paula Cluth. It's all about working with autistic children. I work with autistic children in my class and in my building. I thought it would be a good idea to take advantage of this class. It was an amazing class. Susie and Ashley provide a lot of information, of course, but also in the class were many special ed teachers, and I learned a lot from them also. The class had a lot of, now can we get rid of that?
Yeah. Start
Okay.
with class.
Hold on, let me think. What was I going to say? Okay, during the class we learned a lot, but the last night was my favorite. We had a panel discussion with an autistic child, parents and siblings of an autistic child, and Marty Murphy, who is an autistic adult who lives in our community. She speaks nationwide about autism. The panel was great. We laughed, we cried, and learned a lot. What Marty Murphy told me that I remember is that she said her current fixation was watches. And if she were to go into a meltdown, her driver, Chuck Hartzell, who she also lives with Chuck's family, would start talking to her about watches, and she would calm down and offset that meltdown. So after I left the class, I was very empowered, had to run by the grocery store, and when I came out, there was a scene. There was a van parked, there was a boy lying on the ground screaming in this high-pitched voice, and there was a man yelling at him things like, if you don't get in the van, you're going to not to be able to live with your grandmother or grandfather. I'm going to call DCFS. I'm going to call the police. And don't ask me why, but for some reason I just knew that this child was autistic. I drove over and asked the gentleman if I could help in any way. He said he was a relative from out of town. The boy was autistic. He took him to Monster Pond to buy some comic books, and he only had $12, and the boy wanted to purchase more than $12 worth of comic books. He wouldn't put a few back, so they had to put them all back, and the boy got upset. So I kind of figured out what was happening, and I went and sat next to the boy, and I said, told him my name, and I said, I can tell that you're really sad and upset, and when I'm really sad, I like to read comic books. And he kind of looked at me, and I said, I really like to read comic books. In fact, I probably read them every day. I like to read different ones. I like to look at the pictures. I think they're funny and colorful. Sometimes I don't even read the words, I just look at the pictures. So he sat up and he started talking to me about comic books. And I said, what's your favorite comic book? And he said, Alf. And I said, do you have a lot of Alf comic books? And he said, no, he didn't have any. And I figured out why he was so upset. So I said, well, maybe you could go home and draw a picture of Alf, and that would make you feel better. I said, are you good at drawing? And he said, no. And I said, thought, darn, that's not going to work. So then I said, well, why don't you go home and write his name? And I would write it over and over and over, and write it in red and yellow and green and purple and orange, and do that again and again, and you'd have a rainbow color picture that would be beautiful, all about Alf. You put it on the refrigerator, you could put it in your room, and the next time you get to go buy one comic book, you can buy one about Alf. So he thought that was a good idea. I said, well, you need to get in the van so you can go home and start writing Alf's name. And he wanted me to come with him, but I said I couldn't. So he got in the van and they drove away. And I was literally shaking because it was such an amazing event that just happened. I never thought that something like this would happen to me, and I was just, I was just so stunned. I took this class because I wanted to help students in my classroom that have autism, and I wanted to help students in our building, but I ended up helping someone in the community, and I don't think it gets any better than that. So if you have a chance to take an opportunity to take one of these classes, I'm going to do that again. If you have a chance to take a professional development opportunity provided by the district, I suggest you take advantage of it.
Thank you so much.
Ugh.